So first I'd like you to introduce your company, give a brief overview of your application and your motivations for creating it.
Well, we're not a company actually, we're just a project that I started with a friend of mine about a year ago, part-time, so we're still thinking of moving it forward. And we've created StoryTlr because today your life on the internet is fragmented across many different places. Pictures on Picasa, video on YouTube, Google Readers. That makes it difficult for your friends to follow you, makes it difficult for you to search, navigate that information. And more important, it sort of doesn't help your online identity. Your online identity is fragmented across many different services. So when you search for your name on Google, it's many different places that are showing up and nothing that really shows who you really are. So StoryTlr solves that problem by bringing all your data together in one place, which is highly personal, typically under your own domain name. So you can easily share it with your friends. And we get our name StoryTlr because we enable people to mash up elements, these data together in sort of a story that serve as a photo album that you can easily share with your friends or keep as a memory. So as an example, you go on a hike or holiday, you tweet, post pictures or share a video, or you bring that together in a nicely packaged, nice visual that we call a story.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you came about choosing to use these different GData APIs to access a person's information? Can you tell us how you came to this decision?
Well, the point of StoryTlr is to bring the user's data together. So Google is a market leader on a lot of these data sources, YouTube or Picasa Pictures, for example. So it was just natural to get that data. And Google is very open on its data source, fantastic APIs that we could leverage. So it was a natural first step for us to first target the YouTube data APIs, but of course we're adding also other services which are not Google properties, because we really want to be able to cover the whole range of data source on the internet.
Okay, so as developers we really value being able to share war stories and lessons from technical challenges.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about one particularly difficult period of development that you faced and how you approached this technical challenge?
I think I would just share with you my biggest mistake on this project because it's a very good lesson learned. Initially, we've developed this only for our own personal page. We didn't think about this as a product, so we didn't think at all about scalability, and we didn't think at all about internationalization. So I think for a developer, if you believe in your product and you believe what you're building is great, you should already think about being huge, being large. I don't mean you don't need to build a scalable system firsthand, but you need to think about it. Because, for example, retrofitting a localization framework in your application is just a nightmare. Today I have to almost rewrite my whole code base to be able to target different languages. If I just had taken a few hours to think through what framework I was going to use for localization and translation and to implement that framework up front. Not to do all the different languages, just to put the framework in place. I mean, today would be okay, but right now we're totally stuck. Same thing with scalability. We have to rewrite a huge part of our data access because we didn't think about simple things that would have today save us a lot of time. So if you build something and you believe in it, it is going to be big. Think upfront of how you're going to make it scale, make it international. Just think that upfront. It's going to save you a lot of time.
So what were the benefits to your app of using the Google Data APIs?
Well, one thing I find fantastic in Google Data API is that they are built on a uniform foundation called the GData protocol. So it makes it very easy to port code. So if you build code to access the YouTube API, for example, you can very easily then switch to Picasa, for example, or the Blogger API. It's all built across this GData layer. It's all REST, and you have a lot of different ways to get the data. Would be Atom or JSON. I think honestly, it's been one of the simplest API to use amongst the different services we've targeted.
So the next question is a nice follow-up to that. Can you talk about how using the Google Data APIs has reduced the amount of work for you? And could you please elaborate on how this has happened?
Well, so as I mentioned earlier, if you write code to access YouTube and if you spend time to learn the YouTube API, all that knowledge, you can transfer it to any of the other Google API because they are all using the same foundation. So same thing with your code, you can have a common code base that then you will specify for specific data source. So that way, I think you don't have to develop for each separate. It's not like you have to spend time on YouTube, then spend time on Picasa. You just spend time on preparing a foundation to access Google data APIs, and then you sort of get the rest for free. So if tomorrow Google were to have a new API for new services like Google Reader, I think it's going to be very easy for us to get it through. Another important aspect is that Google supports a lot of different standards in terms of how the data is expressed. All our code base is PHP, for example, so JSON was a very natural fit. There are a lot of JSON links in PHP that works quite well. And I think Google is going to introduce even more supports and more this kind of data description. So it's all good for us.
So my last question is, what are like 3 things you'd like to see added to the Google Data APIs?
In our case, we want data to be as fast as possible brought into our users' environment, so we can display it, but also we can push it, for example, to the social networks they use. We have a lot of users, so we cannot ask YouTube every minute, what is there something new. So we want Google to move forward in helping this real-time web to happen. For example, there is a simple protocol called SUB, Symbol Update Protocol, which simplifies a lot this mechanism, so we don't have to go back to YouTube all the time asking for all our users what's new. We just have to go and say, hey, what happened on YouTube for the last 5 minutes? Maybe there is one of our users, and then we can grab his data. So we hope Google is going to move forward on SUB, not only for YouTube, but across all its base. That's definitely one requirement. 2, I would love an API on Google Reader. Right now it's just more of like just an RSS feed. I would really like to be able to consume the Google Reader data, for example with SUB, but also having the tagging, the comments all included, so this to be really an API. And number 3, today was announcement of Wave, so I just hope that it's not a request, it's more a wish. I just hope the API is going to be open enough so that we can take advantage of it, but knowing Google, I know my wish will be exhausted, so I'm looking forward to next year to show you what we'll be building with Wave.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.